Hello guys, in today's tutorial I'll be taking you through the CRUD, that's create, read, update and delete operations using PHP. I've already set up my page with Bootstrap. If you don't know how to set up Bootstrap, watch my previous tutorial. So starting with the create, so in the body we'll create a row on the two. If any of this is strange to you, watch the previous tutorial. Inside we have our heading. Let's do registration. So let's see what we've done so far. Let's run this page. So to do that, localhost CRUD. That's the name of CRUD is the name of the folder, the project I created in the www directory. So when I do this, I get the registration that I've done. So now to let this registration count in the center, I can just do this class text center. So when I do this to be align center, so let's start with our form. So form action empty. The method should be post. So div class form group. Make sure you watch my previous tutorial to understand everything I'm doing. So we have first name, text. To make it nice, use the form control. Now in the input tag, the elements you add required. When you add required, it means that field must be entered by the user before it will. So if the user didn't fill it, the user will not be able to submit the form. So to the last name is last name. So let's do gender here. Gender. So yeah. We also put required here. So this should do. Now let's add our submit button. So submit. One type submit. Good. So around this we have first name, last name, gender, submit. Don't worry about the design, but the aim is just to submit this form. So after creating the form, we need a database to hold all this record. So I'll go to localhost/phpMyAdmin. So, okay. Now Good. Now the default username is the root, no password. Just go. So now this is the PHP admin interface. So to create a new database, you create on the new icon here. Database name, let's call it CRUD also. CRUD. Create. So after creating CRUD, we will now create a table that can take these three fields. So we have first name, last name, and gender. So that's three. But now we need an ID to save this record. We want to use an ID. We can save it alright without using ID. But in this case, let's create an ID. So that leads us to auto increment. So we call this the name of this table registration, and the columns 4. So after creating the columns, now the first column, let's put ID there. Type int. Now at this side, I'll select primary key because an ID and auto increment. We'll see the meaning of auto increment in a while. So now the original fields: first name, last name, and gender. So first name, let's do back 100. Last name 100. Then gender. Gender is just female. Okay, let's just do back also 10. Good. So let's save this. Good. Now we have our registration table is having 4 columns: ID, first name, last name, and gender. So I'm going to create a new file to connect to the database. So I'm saving that file inside my CRUD project. I'm saving it as db.php. So inside the db.php, we want to open the PHP tag and do connect to the database we just created. So do MySQL connect localhost to the first parameter, followed by the username, that's root, password, no password, the name of the database, CRUD, and that's all for this. So after when we're done creating the db.php, you can now go to the top of our registration page and include the file we just created. Good. So now to submit this form we've done, we'll do info if not empty post. Let's use one of the required fields, that's first name. So if first name is there, then we'll pick first name and equal to. Now for any reason, anyone can have a single quote inside the name. Assuming my name can be Adams single quote S, like this. When you without handling this, when you try inserting a name that is having quotes or a text that is having quotes, you are going to get error. So to handle that error, we'll do MySQL real escape string. the first parameter is connect, that's the connection in the DB. Then they followed by the actual parameter we are taking, that's first name. Good. So last name also, in case it has single quote in it, you want to undo that, I do the main escape string. So last name, now followed by gender. Gender, let's just use this. Right. So basically, we added the MySQL real escape string because you want to escape in case there is quotation mark in any of the text that has been inputted. So to do the insertion, we do MySQL query insert. We want to insert into the table we just created. Insert into registration. Now, don't forget we will follow the arrangement we've done here. So the first thing is the ID, but we choose auto increment when we're creating it. That means this ID will be generating by itself. So when you are specifying a value, you specify null. So when you specify null, it means generate the ID or put the default value there. But in this case, we're generating the ID, so we are just putting null there. So when we put null, now for the first name column, I'll put the variable first name, the one we've extracted here. Good. So last name and gender. Good. So we can say if q equal let, which is data set record set. Good. So else, in case it's not successful, so we want to see a prompt alert arrow saving record. Good. So let's see what we've done. So I'm going to go add Smith. Gender is male. Record save. Good. So we'll go to our database. We should have, see, the ID auto, it has generated one, first name, last name, gender. I tried to insert something else. Lucas Mora. Saved. And just do my mail. Good. So as you can see, the ID is increasing. That's the idea. When the auto increment comes into handy, it generates the ID for you. Okay. So that's for the creating. Now let's create a page to fetch all the record that has been saved. So I'll copy this whole page, paste it. I'll save it as reports.php. Now inside the report, I'm deleting the form that I will copied, so that I can just make this one reports. And this query, we don't need it anymore because we duplicated it just to make our design easier. Good. So now we have a page called reports. So we can add in the form, the page that contains the form, we can add a link to the report page. So report.php, report page. If you see anything you don't understand, make sure you go to the previous tutorials and watch. So we should have report page. That's here. So when we click it, it sends us to the report. Now the report, we want to display all the data that has been saved. So to do that, we'll use a table to display it. Basically, you use table to show reports of data. So use table. Inside there, I'll do table order. The headings. So sorry. TH. We want to have serial number. We want to have the first name. Those are the headings. I want to have last name. I want to have gender. Good. So what you've done now is you have serial number, first name, last name, and gender. Now it's left with displaying the records that are saved here. So to do that, we open our PHP tag and we do exe is equal to MySQL query connect. Don't forget, this connect is from, we are using this connect because we've included the db.php. You know, the db.php connect contains the connect. So we're using the connect in here on this page, at this side. So now the query. So when you select all from where the name of the table is called registration. So select all from registration. There's no condition here. We are just picking all the records that are in registration. So while data is equal to MySQL fetch. So now echo tr. So td and square brackets. Now don't forget that serial number. This serial number here you should be the one who control that. You should not be. So we see count is equal to 1. So that at the first column here we can say count. Count. So that means when we are there. So after count, you want to display the first name. In the database, the column, the identifier for that column is first name. So we can say first name. So after the first name, there's now a last name. Note, I'm not just typing first name and last name here because I'm displaying first name and last name. I'm typing it because that's the column identifier. See, when I wanted the first name, I typed the first name because that's what I use to identify that column. If you use F name or any other thing to identify first name, you should use what you use to identify that column. Good. So after the last name is left with the gender. So data gender. period. So agenda. Now let's run this page and see what happens. Now see that the records are showing. All the records that are saved are showing. Adam Smith, Mel, Lucas, Mora, Mel, Femi, Mel. But the serial number is still 1111. That's because we made it 1 year and we're just displaying it. So to make it increase, we just do count plus plus. That means when you get to this line, when you are done displaying the 1, increase count by 1. So it will come back, put 2, 1 plus 1 is 2, so 2 will come here, the first name, last name, gender will come. It will not turn to 3, 3 will come for the third record, so it continues like that. So now you see that it's not changed. Good. So that's for the reading. Now we've read the record that we saved from the registration page. Now delete. To delete the record is just straightforward. So we can add another column here. So that I can equally add another column. So inside this column, we have an anchor tag, a link. So delete. So inside the href of this, we want to do question mark id is delete id is equal to. Now let's pick. Now usually when you want to delete, you pick the unique identifier of that record that you delete. You can see the unique identifier for the first record here is Adam, because you can have other Adams in the table. So the unique thing is the ID here, this ID. So that means our delete ID will now be equal to data ID, meaning the record that were fetched here, we are picking the ID portion of it. So what we've done here, let's come back. Now when this delete ID is, when its delete is clicked, you see that I'm saying delete ID is equal to 1 because I clicked the first one. If I click this second one, delete ID is equal to 2. And you see, check my URL. If I click the third one, delete ID is equal to 3. So that's what we want to see. So now what we'll do now is that we'll go to the top and write a code that will check if there's a delete ID. If delete ID is part of our URL, we'll pick the ID and we'll delete. So what we'll just do is if it says get delete ID. So delete ID. So it means if there is any delete ID variable on top here, meaning if there exists a question mark and delete ID follows it, pick what is inside the ID. So say ID is equal to get delete ID. So now what we've just done on this line is that we've picked the value. The value currently is 3. Hence, we've picked the value that is inside this delete ID, saved it inside the ID variable, and now that we have the ID, you can say q is equal to MySQL query delete from registration. The name of The name of the table is called registration. This variable where the table where you are storing the data is called registration. So you can say delete from registration where ID is equal to, we're saying we are deleting where this ID column is equal to the one we've picked on top. That's variable ID. So we do $sign, that's variable ID. So if Q, just say echo alert record deleted. Now, listen, when I click on 2, you see record deleted, it has gone. I click on, now there's an issue here. You see that after deleting, I can still see this. And the normal thing to do is when you are done deleting, you should clear the URL. The delete should not be there again. So what we'll do is to remove the URL to clean it up after using it. After seeing record deleted, we'll now say windows.location href means after deleting, reload that page. The name of the page is reports.php. So after deleting, reload the page so that any other thing attached to it will be gone. So if I delete this first one now, you see it has been deleted and there's nothing at the URL. So let's add a link to the registration page again. So here I want to do anchor, that's index, and the registration page is index. So registration page, create registration page. So I can say mail dy mail tutorial my female. So if I save that and go to report page, I have all those two I've saved, and I can click on the delete to delete them. Now there is an issue also with this delete. When you click, you should not just delete, you should let the user confirm whether he really wants to delete. So to do that, you just come to the tag here, then do click single quote. We are using single quote inside here because we've already opened double quote here. So when you use double quote inside, it interferes with this. So we'll use single quote and say return confirm. Return confirm. Now inside here, we don't have option than to use double quote because if you use single quote outside here, we have to use double quote inside here. Now looking at it, it will interfere with this double quote. To stop it from interfering, it is good. So we escape it with the backslash and say confirm delete. This can be confusing, but just look at it, you should get it. Okay, so when you do this, next time the person is coming, is get confirm delete. Now the person has the option the user has the option to cancel. Also, okay if he wants to delete. So that's all for the delete. Now we're able to do the create, read, and updates. The next tutorial will handle the deletes and the updates. The next tutorial will handle the update portion of it. Thank you. Guys, make sure you like this video, you make your comments, and you subscribe to the channel for more updates on the tutorial list.